CEO laughed at girls' piano skills, but what happened next will haunt you forever. In the heart of the glitzy city, where dreams collide with cold steel and ambition mingled with desperation, a moment unfolded that few could dare to look away from. In a lavish boardroom with a view of the skyline, Rebecca, a young girl with trembling fingers, approached the grand piano. It was her first big chance, her moment in the spotlight. But when she poured her soul into the keys, the CEO, a titan of industry with a face carved by power, burst into laughter. It echoed off the marble walls like a cruel taunt. The glittering chandeliers above seemed to dim, the air grew thick, and eyes filled with disbelief darted around the room. Everyone gasped. That shock hung heavier than the weight of crushed dreams. Was this a moment of laughter or a harbinger of something darker? The CEO's grin grew wider, almost sinister. Yet, just as quickly, the laughter stopped. A silence enveloped the room, hanging like a fog. No one dared breathe. What did he see in Rebecca's eyes? Fear? Or perhaps something far more dangerous, determination? But then, the strangest thing happened. In that suspended moment, a strange melody filled the air, intermingling with the fading laughter. Was it Rebecca? No, her hands were frozen above the keys, paralyzed by the humiliation. Instead, it felt like whispers, ghostly verses floating through the rafters, intertwining with her pain and igniting a flicker of courage inside her chest. The atmosphere shifted, viewers exchanged glances, hearts raced. Could they hear it too? And who was behind this eerie intrusion? A shiver slid down Rebecca's spine, tightening her throat as if the very walls were alive. Was someone trying to guide her? Desperate glances met her brave, defiant stare, sending waves of pressure through the air like static. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As the CEO's laughter faded into an uncomfortable memory, Rebecca took a deep breath, her mind swirling with a blend of confusion and a surge of adrenaline. The cacophony of voices around her filled the void left behind, tensions bubbling like a pot on the verge of boiling over. Whispers broke out as people tried to process the unexpected phenomena around them, but suddenly, as if acting on an unseen cue, the grand piano seemed to tremble beneath her fingertips, resonating with power that felt otherworldly. What was this? Had the laughter summoned something from the depths? The crowd held their breath, transfixed by Rebecca's transformation from mortified child to resolute warrior. A soft glow seemed to emanate from her hands, illuminating her face, casting shadows behind her, making her look almost ethereal, and just when the tension hit its peak, a chilling wind blew through the room, extinguishing the overhead lights, their glow fading into darkness. Gasps echoed like thunder, and a sense of impending dread hung over them all. What was happening? As she stood there, engulfed in shadows, hearts racing, the chilling, ghostly melody wrapped around Rebecca, urging her to play. What could she unleash from within, and would the laughter turn to applause or something more sinister? The air buzzed with possibilities, leaving them all yearning for the answer that would come from the keys, or up from the shadows. What would happen next? The darkness swallowed the boardroom whole, as if the very essence of fear had seeped into its walls. A heartbeat surged within Rebecca, thumping loudly in her ears, drowning out the unsettling whispers that danced around her. The oppressive silence thickened, and every breath felt like a dare. She wasn't just standing before a piano, she was standing at the edge of a chasm. From somewhere deep inside, a pull surged. It coursed through her veins, daring her to strike a chord, to awaken whatever presence lurked within the shadows. The crowd, trapped in their disbelief, held their breath, eyes wide and mouths agape. The CEO, who moments ago had reveled in his mockery, now sat rigid, his laughter replaced by a worried frown. What had he summoned? Was it fear, shame, or an unquenchable power? With trembling hands, Rebecca felt the weight of her choice. Did she dare embrace the energy rippling in the air? The piano beckoned her, its keys aglow with an otherworldly light, warm and beckoning. She hesitated, sweat trickling down her brow, mixing with her confusion and fear. The whispers grew louder now, a cacophony of ghosts urging her on. Play! They seemed to command, and in that instant, she made her decision. She pressed down on the keys, a tentative note escaping into the darkness. The sound was haunting, reverberating through the room like the lament of a forgotten soul. Each note unlocked something deep within her, a melody that twisted and turned around pulsating echoes of the past. It thrummed in concert with her frantic heart, and with each stroke, the glow intensified, illuminating the doubts and fears that weighed her down. The spectators, once caught in the web of disbelief, now leaned forward, eyes reflecting the strange light. The atmosphere surged with energy as if the shadows themselves danced in response to Rebecca's daring. Gasps erupted. Some recoiled, while others found their fear replaced with wonder. The supernatural melody filled the void with vibrant whispers of hope and darkness, merging harmoniously in an uncanny ballet. But then, a sudden chill swept through the air, cutting through the warmth of her resolve. A voice, dark and smooth as silk, emerged from the shadows. "Are you ready to face what lies beneath?" It whispered, echoing through Rebecca's mind, an invitation twisted with a threat. Panic whipped through her. Who was this? Was it the echoes of those silenced by laughter, or something far more sinister? Despite her fear, she clenched her fists around the keys and played on, pushing back against the encroaching darkness. The melody shifted, now a battle cry, a plea for courage. As she poured her spirit into the song, sunlight from outside pierced the void momentarily, illuminating each face touched by her music. She saw hope blooming where there was despair, but as suddenly as the light flickered, it was gone. The room plunged back into shadow, amplifying the whispers to a deafening roar. The CEO, his face now pale, glanced nervously toward the door, as if something sinister awaited just beyond the threshold. "Stop!" he shouted, desperation seeping into his voice. Rebecca, clutching the melody like a lifeline, felt a shiver run down her spine. "What have you done?" she gasped, the eerie power of her music suddenly feeling less like a gift and more like a burden. What lay waiting just outside the threshold? Could she outplay the darkness closing in on her? Or was there something sinister lurking in the very essence of her newfound power? The struggle and the stakes rose, leaving everyone questioning if music could truly conquer the shadows, or if it would awaken something far more terrifying. Now, as Rebecca bore the weight of her decision and the uncertainty of what might unfold, one thing was clear: she had awakened a force that could change everything. What was it truly capable of? The shadows intensified as Rebecca's music hung thick in the air, wrapping around the audience like a shroud. The whispers swirled into a tempest, each one clawing at her. Fear crawled into Rebecca's throat, choking her, but she refused to falter. The room was a battleground, and her song was the sword she wielded against the encroaching darkness. "Don't stop!" someone yelled from the back. Might have been Carl, the quiet accountant. His voice broke through the chaos, a wavering anchor. But even as the call echoed, Rebecca felt the notes slipping from her grasp. Panic was a venomous fog seeping into her mind, blurring thoughts, stifling breath. The shadows stretched and warped, the figures of her colleagues twisting into grotesque visages. "Play or perish," the silk voice hissed again, lilting and inviting. Rebecca's heart raced, but deep inside, uncertainty curdled into a steely resolve. What could she unleash beneath the surface? With a sharp intake of breath, she unleashed a discordant crash of notes, chaotic, jarring, as if rebelling against the very fabric of fear binding her. It felt wrong yet cathartic, an explosion of sound that rattled the room. But then silence. An unexpected, echoing silence, and it jolted her forward as if time itself hesitated. The CEO was on his feet, sweat glistening on his upper lip, eyes darting as if hunted. "What have you done?" he rasped, his bravado eroding like a house of cards. His gaze darted to the door again. The others were frozen, caught in a web of uncertainty, half hoping for salvation, half dreading the unknown. Then, it came a whispering wind that swept through the room. The right to be heard, to be seen, and to claim power surged through Rebecca like fire. She dared to meet the darkness head-on. Each note she struck now imbued with defiance, a rebellion against forces that had unbound her self-worth for too long. She pressed down again, letting the relentless melody flood the space. The air shifted, humming with an electric charge. The shadows writhed, and behind the CEO, she caught a glimpse of movement. A swirling silhouette, darker than the void, began to creep toward the light. It coalesced, taking the shape of a figure not human, not entirely. It flickered like a dying flame, a distorted reflection of everyone in the room, a twisted amalgamation of their fears. Rebecca shuddered. This wasn't simply a manifestation of darkness, it was their collective dread, their hidden insecurities wearing a mask. She felt her own fears rise among them, suffocating her heart. But something deep within burned bright. She could not let it take hold. Suddenly, she felt an echo of anger rising in her, a resolve wrapped in sorrow, like a force of nature. In one decisive motion, she leaned into the piano, her fingers flying over the keys, weaving a new melody that burst forth like dawn breaking the night. Each note surged with clarity, cutting through the haze of doubt and despair. The light returned, brighter this time, casting the shadows into retreat. The entity screeched, a wailing cyclone of fear as it dissipated, clawing at the air in vain. The boardroom shook as if the very building itself responded to her audacity. Whispers turned to gasps, gasps to rising shouts of disbelief and awe. But Rebecca knew this wasn't over. The gasps turned to cries for help, desperate, rising from the crowd's depths. Their fears hadn't vanished, they were simply lurking, biding their time. What had she truly awakened? Was this force one she could control, or would it consume her? As the chaos settled, a shadow flickered at the periphery of her vision. Just beyond the door stood a figure tall, draped in darkness, its eyes glinting like hungry coals. The room held its breath. Rebecca's throat ran dry, and for the first time, doubt teetered dangerously close. In that moment, she understood, her vision was only the beginning. What would this figure demand? What price was she truly willing to pay to banish the darkness once and for all? The silence in the boardroom felt suffocating. Rebecca's heart pounded in her chest as she stared at the figure silhouetted against the door. The dim light flickered like a candle in a storm, casting shadows that danced around her colleagues' terrified faces. They were frozen, all eyes locked on the looming presence, as if it were a predator waiting to pounce. "Who are you?" Rebecca found her voice, rough and trembling, but resolute. It was madness. She was addressing something that shouldn't exist in their reality. Yet, every instinct screamed that it was not here by coincidence. Panic thrummed at her temples. The figure stepped forward, pulling the darkness along with it, coalescing into a form that was unsettlingly familiar. It wore the face of their deepest fears, voicing them without words. Suddenly, Rebecca recognized the eyes. They were the same as those around her, streaked with judgment, laden with insecurities. It was like looking into a cracked mirror reflecting everyone's doubts and failures. "Do you wish to play with what you have awakened?" The voice echoed, a haunting whisper that seeped into her bones. "This is no mere game, Rebecca. You have called upon the shadows, and they thirst for your reckoning." Every terror she tucked away began to dance in front of her, the muted laughter, the dismissive glances, the moments of defeat. She gritted her teeth, reminding herself of the power that surged through her when she played, of the light that had chased one shadow away. But would it be enough? "Leave them alone," she shouted, the anger bubbling over her initial fear. "This isn't their burden. It's mine." The resolve she felt took root, clawing down deep within her as she prepared for a battle she never expected to face. Another step forward, the figure's features sharpening. Power comes with a price, little songbird. You play a beautiful tune, but beauty and horror are two sides of the same coin. Are you prepared for what may emerge? Her heart fluttered with doubt, but a new urgency pulsed through her veins. Show me, she dared, her voice steady despite the tumult inside. If I'm to face it, I need to understand. With that, the room twisted, the walls bending and warping like a carnival funhouse mirror. The familiar became alien. Panic rose again. Yet Rebecca held on, unwilling to falter. What do you really fear, Rebecca? What haven you faced? Instantly, shadows began to swirl, unveiling raw memories, the day she had been ignored during a meeting, the ghost of her dreams echoing her failures, words of doubt wrapping around her like barbed wire. Tears stung her eyes, but she fought to keep them at bay. Each vision intensified the sensation of being pulled apart. Was this the reckoning? Would she have to confront the very core of her sorrow? Those thoughts clawed at her, but she pushed against the tide, breathing deeply, summoning strength. The figure laughed softly, a chilling sound that slithered through the room. You think you can conquer this? Fear isn't just a monster waiting to be banished, Rebecca. It's part of you. Accept that or be consumed by it. The shadows thickened, closing in as if to engulf her. She clutched the edges of the piano, grounding herself in the wood solidity. What if they were right? What if she couldn't? You're wrong. She shouted, feeling adrenaline spike through her. I am not defined by fear. I can be more. With that, she slammed her hands down onto the piano keys, feeling the raw energy surging from her fingertips. A cacophony erupted, drowning out the figure's whispers, drowning out her doubt. This time, she played not to chase shadows but to embrace them, to mold them into something beautiful, but as the haunting melody unfolded, the laughter turned from chill to rage. The shadows writhed and lashed, pushing back against her music, hungry for dominance. The temperature dropped, breath visible in the air, the room flooding with a suffocating tension. As the last note echoed and faded, Rebecca felt a flicker of hope. But just beyond that flicker lay uncertainty. Had she really succeeded, or had she merely scratched the surface? The figure leaned closer, eyes blazing. You've only just begun and the darkness is not finished with you yet. With those words, a wall of shadows rushed forward, swallowing her surroundings, and Rebecca's scream was lost in the void. What awaited her in this shrouded abyss? What other horrors would she have to confront to reclaim the light? The void swallowed Rebecca whole, pulling her deeper into the darkness. As she fell, the silence was deafening, an oppressive weight pressing against her chest. It felt like time stretched infinitely, each heartbeat echoing her fear. Suddenly, the darkness gave way to flickering images, shadows of memories she had pushed far beneath her conscious mind. They burst forth like a flood, overwhelming her senses. She was back in her childhood home, sitting at the piano, but something was wrong. The room was cloaked in shadows, and the laughter haunting her was not joyful, it was mocking. A chorus of sneering voices filled her ears. You think you can play? You'll never be good enough. Each taunt struck her like blows, piercing through her defenses. The walls were decorated not with accolades, but with the shards of judgment she had collected over years. Make it stop. She begged, but the shadows laughed louder, circling her like vultures. Then, out of the haze, she saw her younger self, small, frail, fingers hovering above the keys, trembling. The girl looked lost, overwhelmed by the weight of her dreams and the burden of others' expectations. Rebecca's heart twisted painfully as she recognized the same trepidation she felt now, watching in horror as a version of herself that had once sparkled with potential dimmed under the pressure. Why did you stop? She whispered, reaching out toward her younger self, desperate to connect. If she could only remind that little girl of the fire within her, but instead, a dark figure stepped in front of her, blocking the sight, mimicking her own shape yet distorted with malevolence. You left her to drown, Rebecca. You abandoned that dream, it hissed, eyes glowing like cold embers. how does it feel to know you could have been more? The shame surged in her, fresh and raw. Every moment of hesitation, every time she chose safety over her passion flashed before her eyes. She felt nauseous, but a spark ignited deep within a flicker of resilience. "That's not true," she said, her voice trembling but gaining strength. "I didn't abandon her, I just lost my way." The figure loomed closer, its breath chilling her skin. "Lost?" "Not lost, Rebecca. Willful blindness." She needed to fight back. Drawing from that spark, she called upon the music that once flowed through her, a tide of warmth battling the bitter cold. The darkness shifted as a flowing melody rose in her heart. It took form, intertwining with the shadows a rhythm that demanded to be played. "Accept this," she cried, her voice filling the void. "I am not afraid." The melody surged like a wave, crashing against the darkness, pushing it back. The shadows writhed, howling in protest as she played. With each note, she felt the undercurrents of pain, fear, and regret begin to change, twisting into something transformative. It was raw and chaotic but beautiful, a blend of every sorrow and triumph, but as the music gained life, the figure's laughter turned frantic, desperate. "You're a fool to think this will save you. The darkness won't let go." Rebecca pressed on, feeling the power of her past weaving into the present. Each note echoed with defiance, demanding recognition, not as something to be shunned but embraced. The air thickened with purpose, and she felt every colleague watching her, faces distorted by their fears, reflecting her own struggles yet entwined in shared humanity. The scenery around her ebbed and flowed like waves, and for a moment, she glimpsed the light breaking through the shadows. Victory filled her heart just enough to drown out the oppression, to show her that hope was not a fleeting moment but a stronghold worth fighting for. As the final note faded, silence enveloped her, thick and expectant. But the figure recoiled, rage spilling from its lips. "You cannot hide from this. You must still face what comes next." The darkness rippled as if vibrating with uncertainty. Would she have the strength to face even more? With a shaky breath, Rebecca felt the ground beneath her shift again. The shadows roared, awakening something deeper, some part of her that had yet to emerge. What lay ahead in this swirling tempest of shadow and light? What ultimate reckoning was still to come? Rebecca braced herself as the shadows writhed and converged, spiraling into a vortex around her. A sickening pull dragged her closer, pulling her deeper into the abyss. Yet stimulated by the melody she'd summoned, her heart clung to the flicker of light. Suddenly, sharp images erupted from the swirling mass. Her breath caught as she watched her childhood home change around her. The inky walls morphed into crumbling bricks, damp and dark, warped reflections of her fears. The broken piano lay abandoned, dust gathering on the keys. "Why are you letting them win?" A whisper echoed from the depths, a ghostly chill sending a shiver down her spine. She recognized the voice. It was an echo of her own, shrouded in doubt. "You think they'll just back down?" "No!" she shouted, feeling the embers of defiance rekindle in her soul. She closed her eyes, envisioning the little girl again, the one who believed music could conquer anything. But as she opened them, the shadows morphed, turning into faces she recognized, her critical peers, her unsympathetic boss, the distant laughter at her childhood recitals. Their sneers twisted against the walls like vines, creeping toward her. It was suffocating. "Face your reality, Rebecca." The dark figure laughed, a cackle that echoed endlessly. "You only exist in their shadows. Remove yourself, and you'll dissolve." "No." She swung her arm in defiance. The moment she spoke, fire ignited within her like a brand. The piano keys began to glow, colored in shades of crimson and gold, illuminating the encroaching darkness. With every beat of her heart, she played, fingers flowing across the unseen keys, a melody emerging stronger than before. It wasn't just a sound, it became a force. It shot forth, exploding into the shadows and unraveling chains that bound her. But the dark figure laughed again, fury igniting its form. You think feelings can save you? Hope is a fragile thing easily shattered. No. Rebecca's voice thundered through the chamber, surprising even herself. Hope is my power. And I won't be quiet anymore. The moment that declaration left her lips, the air shimmered, resonating with the truth she had buried for so long. The audience of shadows faltered, faces reflecting confusion mingled with anger. Is this really what you want? Came a murmured hesitation from the moving darkness. To emerge from the haze and face them again? Yes, she replied, her resolve unyielding. If it means being free. A sudden and blinding light burst from her heart, shattering the cage of gloom. It filled her senses, washing over her like a tidal wave, drowning the dark figure in blazing warmth. For an exhilarating moment, everything felt weightless, suspended in brilliance, but just as quickly, the light dimmed, and in its fading glow, Rebecca gasped. The shadows reformed, now clothed in twisted faces, leering down at her with newfound aggression. Would you rather face us, or remain a specter in their lives, Rebecca? Your choice is coming, and it will matter. The ground trembled, shuddering like a heartbeat as Rebecca realized something monumental loomed just beyond the darkness. It wasn't merely about fighting off shadows, it was about facing the truths that had beaten her down. This isn't the end, she declared, her voice steadying, just another beginning. But as she turned toward the pulsating darkness, every fiber of her being tightened. What awaited her on the other side? Would she find the answers she so desperately sought, or would she be swallowed whole once again? Suspense clung in the air, a thick mist of uncertainty wrapping around her heart. Did she have enough left to confront the ultimate truth? The darkness crackled with energy, and Rebecca felt as if she was suspended on the edge of oblivion. Every heartbeat reverberated through her, racing with anticipation and fear. Her skin tingled as the shadows surged forward, coiling like serpents, reaching for her, yearning to consume her essence. Step forward, Rebecca, the dark figure hissed, its voice slithering around her like smoke. Embrace your fate, or cower in a corner, forever remembered as the girl who could be been. A swell of rage churned in her gut, pushing her to take a step. One foot forward, then another. The shadows hissed, recoiling momentarily, as if her movement was a threat to their very existence. What if you fail? They crooned, their voices intertwining, an ominous symphony. Failure is the echo that never dies. Do you want to hear it again? No. She screamed, the defiance rippling through her as her heart thudded in her chest. But an icy doubt crawled in, emptying her resolve like a gasping breath. Could she truly break free? Even now, the shadows whispered insecurity in a tantalizing lullaby, reminding her of every missed note, every muttered judgment. With a fierce hiss, the figure lunged at her, sweeping its arm in a magnificent arc. Shadows clawed through the air, stretching wide enough to cover her entirely, but Rebecca was no longer paralyzed. She thrust her arms forward, letting the sparks of her heart ignite. Suddenly, the piano reappeared, glorious and illuminated, everything she ever dreamed it could be. The keys gleamed, ivory and radiant, pulsing with life and music. Play. A voice within urged, stronger than the dark chant surrounding her. Let the melody bind the shadows. Without thinking, her fingers danced. She pressed down on the imaginary keys, pouring her soul into the notes. Each sound shattered the thickness around her, bursting forth with raw emotion. The first chord was like thunder, crashing against the dark figure's form. Rebecca could feel the power radiating through her, battling the shadows. More powerful she played, building a fortress around her, notes clashing like swords against looming threats. But the shadows retaliated, twining themselves back around her, determined to drag her down. You think you can take back what you've lost? They seethed. Your dreams are just illusions. Dreams are what I make of them. Rebecca countered, desperation fueling the rhythm. The music flowed out of her, a surge of hope entwined with fear, defiance, and love the love she found in every note, every memory. The ground shook beneath her as the shadows recoiled again, caught off guard by her conviction. "Join us!" they howled, the mass of darkness drifting and swirling, reflecting confusion. "Stay in the shadows where it's safe." "No!" she declared, tears streaming. Memories surged forth, building her strength. Each face she loved, every friend she lost, every dream she had chased flooded back. They all fueled her song, growing it into a tapestry of her truth. With one final crescendo, she struck a chord so pure it sliced through the air, severing the darkness with a brilliance that pierced her despair. But even as the shadows began to recede, a whisper curled back among them, laced with menace. "You think this is victory? You have only just begun to peel back the layers." The ground split open beneath her, and with a gasp, Rebecca felt herself teetering on the edge. What lay below? Would freedom await her, or would she tumble into deeper darkness? With fear clutching at her throat, she reached for the light with trembling hands, unsure if she could hold on. In that moment, reality twisted around her. Would she embrace the unknown, or would the shadows finally consume her? The abyss below beckoned, a silent maw of uncertainty. Rebecca felt her heart pounding, every pulse a siren song urging her to leap and embrace whatever waited beneath. Was it liberation or doom? Suddenly, her fingers found purchase on the edge of the fissure. The music that had once surged through her now faltered, replaced by a haunting silence. She thought of everything she had faced, every judgment, every moment of doubt, and a fierce determination ignited within her. "This is my moment," she whispered to the void below, steadying her breath, stealing courage from her memories. With a swift thrust, Rebecca pulled herself back up from the brink, the shadows teasing her ankles like cold fingers. "You will not claim me," she declared, voice rising against the growing storm. A blinding light erupted, illuminating the darkness, pushing it back even further. But the flickering shadows danced defiantly, laughed even, in a chilling chorus. "You think you can escape? To feel whole again? You're just a tune lost in the forgotten symphony." With a shudder, she slammed her palms onto the piano keys that shone before her. The sound cascaded, crashing, swirling, filling her with an electric current. Each note was a weapon, striking at the shadows that threatened to pull her down. "You're wrong," she cried out fiercely. "I'm not just a lost note. I'm the conductor of my own fate." And with every chord that followed, the air shimmered, transforming formless dread into music that reverberated through the cracks of the realm. The shadows writhed, recoiling from the pure, intoxicating rhythms of life pulled from her essence, yet the dark figure lingered, standing resilient at the edge of the abyss, eyes glinting with malice. "Do you feel it, Rebecca? Each note you play brings your own past as an echo. But remember, every symphony has to face its dissonance. Can you handle the truth?" A jolt of panic washed over her as voices from her past echoed through the cacophony, a swirling vortex of self-doubt. "You'll always be second best," a teacher sneered. "You'll never amount to anything," a distant friend had whispered, their words like daggers. Chilling memories clawed at her, tempting her to falter. Summoning the strength from within, Rebecca squared her shoulders. "No more," she roared, her fingers striking down like lightning across the keys. The hallowed notes spiraled, clashing violently, distorting the air around her, but reshaping it into something new. Something powerful. As the shadows screamed in twisted agony, they shifted, revealing glimpses of new memories, laughter echoed, shared moments brightened, and all the love she'd absorbed began forming a shimmering shield around her. This was not just her battle. It was a fight for those she loved, for every lost dream, every forgotten melody that deserved to persist. But then the ground trembled again, this time beneath an unseen force. The dark figure began to morph, stretching and twisting as if struggling against its own essence. "You think you can strengthen yourself with mere nostalgia? The reality is more treacherous than you know." With one last, heart-wrenching chord, Rebecca felt the light within her surge. The shadows writhed, attempting to envelop her once more, but this time fueled by conviction, she launched forward into the radiant brightness that beckoned, feeling both terrified and alive. As she broke through the illusion, a flash of white light consumed her vision. She had no idea whether she was ascending or plunging deeper. All she knew was that the orchestra of her life was building toward its next crescendo. What awaited her on the other side? Could she truly grasp the life she had fought for so long, or would the haunting whispers of the shadows find her again? The flash of light faded, leaving Rebecca in a space that felt both familiar and utterly foreign. She blinked, trying to adjust to the dim illumination that wrapped around her like a veil. Her heartbeat quickened, the storm's wrath was still echoing, but now, in the distance, an ominous reminder of the struggle she just faced. Before her lay a vast expanse of a surreal landscape. It wasn't the comforting tones of a concert hall or the lively hum of a bustling café. No, this place was draped in muted colors, as if the world had been drained of its life. Shadows crept along the ground like living tendrils, shifting and curling, waiting for her next move. "Welcome back, conductor," a voice purred from the shadows, a silky whisper that curled around her like smoke. She turned sharply, finding the dark figure from the abyss materializing beside her, its features obscured, shifting like fog. Rebecca's resolve flickered briefly. This being was a reminder of every fear she'd fought against. "Did you really think you could escape, or change?" The figure continued, stepping closer. "Your past is a prison, and I hold the keys. You only delay the inevitable." She felt the weight of its words crush against her chest. Memories flooded her mind, each failure, each unkind word dancing behind her eyelids. "No," she steeled herself. "You don't decide my fate." Emboldened, Rebecca reached for the invisible strings binding her to this shadowy world. "Every note I played was a choice. A step towards breaking free." Her fingers twitched with the urge to play again, to unleash the power of her music and drown out the phantoms surrounding her. But the figure laughed, its voice cold and cutting. "Your music? You think it can drown me out? I've seen countless souls crumble under the weight of their doubts. You're simply one of many." Suddenly, echoes surged around her, each note reflected and magnified, weaving a tapestry of her past, a cacophony of laughter, snide remarks, all morphing into a single refrain: "You'll never be good enough." It cut deeper than any blade, an assault that sent her trembling to the ground. Then, something unexpected happened. The shadows lurked closer, but they weren't alone. Flickering in and out between them, she saw flashes of her friends, family, and all the moments where they believed in her. Their voices mingled, lifting her spirit like a rising tide, pushing her deeper into the radiant warmth of their support. "We believe in you, Rebecca." Fueled by their faith, Rebecca stood tall. "You're just echoes. I am more than your doubts." The piano keys materialized once more in her mind, and she felt them engaging her spirit, a song of resistance bursting with vibrant, melodic possibilities. With a rush of fierce emotion, she declared, "I am not afraid." With a deep breath, she clasped her hands, forming an invisible barrier of music that twinkled brightly against the dark. The shadows shrieked, recoiling from the resonance of her declaration. For an electric moment, the dark figure faltered, its form dimming, almost vulnerable. "Remember," it hissed, slithering backwards. "Every decision has its price. When the music fades, what will be left?" And just like that, the scene shifted violently. The ground beneath her began to tremble, fracturing the very reality she clung to. The shadows screamed, distorting into monstrous shapes, threatening to engulf her. Panicking, Rebecca grasped at the echoes of the love she felt moments earlier. She refused to succumb. She spun around, her heart racing wildly, searching for the next surge of light. Then, out of the chaos, a singular note rang clear, breaking through the noise. It called to her, resonating with a frequency that felt both divine and dangerous. But could she find it? Could she transform the lingering fear into freedom before the darkness crushed it all? As the land shook, swallowing the shadows and the figure, her world trembled with potential. Rebecca braced herself, heart thumping, as the grip of uncertainty tightened. What would come next in her fight to reclaim her light? Just when it seemed the shadows would swallow her whole, a flicker of brilliance surged within Rebecca, bright and undeniable. She could see her surroundings shifting and reshaping, as if the very essence of her struggle was manifesting in the chaos. "Play, Rebecca." A voice echoed from the depths of her memories, the familiar tone of her supportive mother echoing in her mind. "Let your heart guide you." Fueled by that remembrance, Rebecca thrust both hands towards the glowing piano that had emerged before her, her fingers trembling yet eager to connect with the music that could reshape reality. The chords vibrated through her, rich and soulful, binding the fragmented memories of encouragement and love into a tapestry of sound. The first notes exploded into the ether, beautiful and fierce, pouring from her heart with the power of all her past struggles. The dark figure recoiled again, shadows flickering like flames caught in a sudden gust of wind. "No!" it hissed, the malice in its tone betraying its fear. "You can't change what's written in darkness." "Maybe not," Rebecca shouted back, confidence igniting with each note she struck. "But I can create my own story." The music enveloped the space, radiating warmth that pushed back the cold silhouettes. What once felt heavy now swirled and danced, a harmony of her experiences woven with triumph. The shadows leapt and twisted, thrashing violently against the melody, but Rebecca was undeterred. She could feel the weight of their pain, but it propelled her forward, her fingers dancing deftly across the keys. The entwined memories of laughter, dreams, moments when her spirit had soared above the judgment filled her spirit with determination. Each key pressed felt like a defiance against every haunting whisper she had suppressed. Suddenly, she found her voice rising above everything, fear morphing into a powerful crescendo. "You do not own me. I refuse to be a victim of your darkness." The melody soared overhead, a beacon of hope cutting through the relentless shadows. The dark figure shrieked, a wail of futility rattling the atmosphere around her, but Rebecca pressed on. What had once been a cacophony of despair transformed into an orchestral victory. She could see it now, the shadows were merely specters born of doubt, fear, and judgment, twisted reflections of her own internal chaos. With one final strike of the keys, a piercing note reverberated through the landscape, shattering the dense darkness around her. The shadows writhed as if in pain, contorting and stretching, unraveling in a thunderous crash that echoed off into the nothingness. One by one, the figures dissolved, liberation washing through her as she felt their grip on her life finally weaken. The music faded into silence, allowing space for her labored breaths, her heart calmed, and finally, a dawning clarity washed over her. The ground beneath her shifted, reforming into a beautiful expanse of light, golden and warm. In this new realm, Rebecca took a moment to breathe deep. The whispers of darkness were gone, replaced by the soft notes of a melody that felt like a promise. "Will you rise?" The soft, echoing voice of her mother returned, but this time with a note of pride wrapped in hope. She nodded, resolved. "I am ready." Stepping forward, she embraced this reality, ready to face whatever would come next. Days turned into months, and through those twists and turns, Rebecca transformed her experience into music. She played for the people who had once doubted her, revealing their own fears through the stories she shared in song. Every chord struck meant vibrant rebirth, and with every performance, the haunting laughter faded further into memory, turning into applause and admiration. One evening, after a brilliant concert in the same lavish boardroom where shadows once laughed at her, Rebecca stood before a new audience. As they applauded, she felt warmth swell in her chest, knowing that she had gone beyond survival. She had truly thrived. Looking out at familiar faces, she smiled, every laugh, every cheer a balm to the wounds of the past. Because here in the glow of acceptance and understanding, she had not just played the piano, she had reclaimed her voice and her power. "Thank you for believing in me," she said, her voice steady. And for the first time in her life, she dared to dream, knowing what had once haunted her had only made her stronger. The weight of her past had turned into wings, her anthem of resilience, letting the notes flow freely around her. As the audience quieted, she whispered to herself, "This is just the beginning." As the last echo resonated, it became clear, fear would never haunt her again. Now, if you've enjoyed this incredible journey alongside Rebecca, you need to subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will leave you breathless. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and keep the magic alive. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this ending. What surprised you the most? Your thoughts mean the world to us, and don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to witness this empowering conclusion. Together, let us spread the inspiration far and wide.